Hello everyone. Now, what we're going to do in this next video is we're going to go over the two application problems in the notes. So the first one says, tell whether the function has a maximum or minimum value and then find it. Okay? So remember, if the coefficient is positive, the parabola is going to open up, which means it's going to have a minimum value, a bottom point in the hill or in the curve. If the parabola has a coefficient or a lead coefficient that's negative, that means it's going to open down. And it's going to have a peak or a maximum point. Now, whether it's a min or a max, that's just your vertex. And to find your vertex, you're going to use the opposite of b over 2a, and then you're going to plug in the opposite of b over 2a. And that's how you find your vertex point like we did in the previous graph. So, for this one, well, first of all, it's positive, so it's going to open like this. So we have a minimum. And now we're going to say the opposite of 18 over 2 times 3, which is 6. So that gives us an x value of 3. And now we're going to plug 3 in. 18 over 6 is double checking. And now we're going to plug this in. So we're going to find f of 3. So that's 3 times 3 squared minus 18 times 3 plus 20. So that's 9. 3 times 9 is 27. Minus 54 plus 20. That's 47. 47 minus 54 is negative 7. And we found our minimum point. The second example, we have to build our function, and then we're going to have to graph it. Now, to graph this one, we're going to, for the first time, use our graphing calculator and see some of the powers that it has to help us find our maxes and mins. So we're going to take a look at this problem. It says a go-kart track has about 380 racers per week and charges $35 to race. The owner estimates there will be 20 more racers per week for every $1 reduction in price per racer. How can the owner of the go-kart maximize the weekly revenue? So, we're going to see this style of question often, so you're going to want to understand how we build it, okay? So, first of all, we know revenue is really the price times the number of racers we got. That's how much money we're making, okay? So, what the go-kart owner is saying is, if we take our $35 to race, and for every dollar we deduct that, we're going to increase the number of racers by 20 more per week. So, we're going to take our price of 35, and we're going to reduce it by a factor of x. And we're going to multiply that by the number of racers. And the number of racers, if we know we have 380, and if we do this reduction, we're going to assume there's going to be 20 more per week. Now our function is set up. We could multiply this all together and get a standard form, but instead what we're going to do is we are going to use our graphing calculator. So now grab that if you have it, and I'm going to go through the steps with you. So I'm tethered here. I'm going to hit HDMI, and you're going to be able to see my calculator screen. I got to erase this other stuff. Awesome. Okay, so I'm just going to start from the home screen here. Second, quit, clear. So I'm on my screen, my cursor's just flashing, you see my cursor, and the first thing I'm going to do, let me pull this over for you guys so you can kind of see the buttons I'm going to use. Is I am going to go to the Y equals button right there. So Y equals. And you can see, this is in the way now. I already have it plotted in. 35 minus X times the quantity, 380 plus 20X. And my screen kind of clips off there. Now, this is where it's going to get a little bit frustrating at times for you. When we hit graph on here, well, first of all, let me tell you, you have this window button. If you hit this button right here, it's window, and it's going to expand or contract or shift our grid. So your window button is by default -10 for your smallest X, +10 for your smallest, for your biggest X, scale of 1, -10, 10, scale of 1. So this is what you have generically when you open this up. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to here, pretend like I never touched it yet. And at the very end here, there's a button called graph. And if you graph that, you're going to see this little thing thinking over here, some little dots, but you don't see anything pop up on your screen. And I'm like, what the heck? What did I do wrong? Well, you didn't do anything wrong. The problem is our graph is off this 10 by 10 grid, and we have to find it. So we have to mess with the window. So there's a couple of tricks you can use here for finding where your max and min might be, and one of them is think about your intercepts. So if I had see if this is going to work. If I had, yes, Y equaled 35 minus X times 380 plus 20X. And if I use the zero product property and I just put 0 in for Y to see where my X intercepts are, that's going to say X is going to be 35 here. Remember, Y equals 0, so I'm going to say this is 0 or that is 0. And X is going to be 19 here, or -19, right? Solve this, -35, 35, -380, divided by -19. Good. So I'm really looking at something that's going to go to 19 and curve like this. So this tells me that I want to have 35 in my window for X somewhere. Now, if X is 35, and I plug this in, well, don't worry about that. So let's go back and do that now. I'm going to go back to the window, and I'm going to say, okay, I don't need -10. Let me just start at X is 0, and I'm going to put in 35. I might just bounce it up to 40 and say, let's go by 2s, just randomly. And now I'm going to hit this. I'm just going to see what it looks like. All right, now you can see I got a picture here. Something came up. Now it's pretty straight. The deal is this: the revenue is nowhere near $10 and -$10. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to window, and I'm going to adjust my Y values. I'm going to say I'm not dealing with negative money, so I'm going to have my Y min be 0, and let's just make my Y max 1,000. Let's go by 10s here and graph. See if I get a better picture. You can see I've got a little curve here, so I'm getting better. It's not straight. Let's go back to my window and let's make it 10,000. Let's make my scale 100 and graph. I'm getting an even nicer curve. Let's go up. I think 100,000 might be too big. So let's go back to my window and let's make this 20,000. Let's keep the 100. Let's take a look at it. And now I'm getting a nice arc, a parabola. I've ignored my negative side because I'm not going to deal with negative riders, negative weeks, negative dollars. So I've got a nice arm. Now the trick is, how do I find the max? Where is, so the picture's not great on these calculators. So how do I find this max? Well, I can hit the trace button and trace, but there's an easier way to do it. I can go here and hit second and calc. Second calc. And I got some options now. I can find a value, I can find a 0, I can find a min, a max. Well, I want to find a max. So I'm going to toggle down here to max, and I'm going to hit enter. Now the max doesn't just spit out. It's going to zero in on the max with the graph. So I've got to do a little bit. You got to know your left from right here, okay? So on my window, and let me clear this writing out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. On my window, it's asking me for a left boundary. So I'm going to go to the left of where I think the max is. Where's the left at? So I'm going to just toggle that flashing cursor. I'm looking at these numbers. I'm looking at my outputs, my Y's. 12,900, 13,100, 13,200, 13,300. I'm going up, I'm going up, I'm going up. I'm looking for the peak. 14,482, 500, 542, 562, 574, 579, 577. So this appears to be my max. So now I'm going to toggle to the left side of what I believe my max is. Toggle to the left of that, over once, over twice, and hit enter. You have just set a left boundary. Now it asks me for a right boundary. So go over twice to get back to where I was, 579. I'm going to go over 2 more times, and I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to set my right boundary. And now it says guess. I'm just going to hit enter for guess. It's going to think for a second, and then it's going to spit out my max. My max is 8. I don't know why my pen's so fat. 8, comma, so 8, comma, 14,580. So if I reduce the price by $8, I am going to make $14,580. It's going to be my maximum revenue. So let's go back to the screen here. So how can the owner of the go-kart track maximize the weekly revenue? If I reduce the price by $8, so if I make it at $27 to race, I'll maximize revenue to $14,580. Like I said, this will be a common problem. This is only the first time you see it. You will see others and you will become more familiar. All right, good luck with your homework problems.